This is kind of what I call the breaking point. Broken pieces everywhere. This is where things snap.
Hello, fellow flames. In case we haven't met, my name is Dr. Harmony, and I will help you live fearless, live loved, and live free. If you're new to my channel, welcome. And if you're returning, welcome back. Make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you know when all my videos and content come live. Today I have Tatiana with us for the August energy and astrology report. And we're diving straight in, and it's very intense on one end. And on another, we brought it into a place of peace. And you will want to watch it all the way through if you possibly can, and come back to it, because we do a little bit of an energy shift and clearing, and the energy was shifting throughout the video. So thank you for joining us, Tatiana.
Thank you, Harmony, for having me back here. And yeah, let's jump back in, as it's going to be a roller coaster ride today. I just don't know what's going on in the world, because I don't watch the news, but it's the intensity, what's happening. It's not just me. Something is happening and I don't know what it is. Well, the astrology is super intense, especially the 2 first weeks. It's I don't know what's happening in the world, what will happen, or what the psyche is going through. But prayer, I just want to invite people to pray, to pray from their hearts, and just pray and be compassionate and be gentle and loving, and just keep praying, because I think the power of prayer can help ease whatever is going on. And I don't know, again, I cannot be I'm the oracle of things and I know everything. It's just if I just go by the reading of the planetary energies, I think it's gonna be possibly one of the most intense months of the year, and if not the year of this is kind of what I call the breaking point. This is where things snap. That's it. This is where it snaps. You know how it's been when you're doing this, and it's been going on back and forth for 2 years, and there's and riots and here and the war there, and I think this is where it snaps. It goes, and that's it. Broken pieces everywhere, and we're gonna have to figure out what to do. That you can't put that back together ever. That's it, done. But it will snap. It's not so that's why I think prayer and peace and be, you will say, peace, purity, remember what you always repeat?
Mm-hmm. Peace, purity, and possibilities.
Yes, and just be there. I think that's going to be the invitation for this month. So whoever's going through whatever, we keep that up. Because I think we need a lot of the support of the loving energy, even if we're not ourselves necessarily living through the chaos. I think a lot of the world will, unfortunately. And I don't know if I watched a little bit of some things that pop in my feeds and stuff. I was watching what's going on in Sri Lanka, for instance, with the farmers and all that stuff, and riots. There's almost no food, no gas. They lines to just even get gas. They chased off the governing family, fled the country. They stormed, it's things like that, and that's kind of these kind of isolated revolutions kind of everywhere. It's the collective psychic energy, and it's okay, we who are here listening to this, is we need to, again, this is how we started the video right off, but I'm being super raw here. We started already, I guess. I don't know. Do you want me to start over?
Yeah, no, this is start, and I will introduce though.
Because this is so that we started this video just because I was in this state of emotion around what I was preparing. And I don't want to be the bringer of the doom and gloom, because that's not the idea. It's the understanding that we are going through massive evolutionary times, and that's it. That's it. There's no.
I have another P to add to that, because I feel that there's prayer, but there's also perspective.
Yes.
So what timeline do you want to live in is what this is asking everyone. And absolutely. This is it. This is your choice to choose where you want to be. And that's why we've been splitting not only collectively and collectively consciously, but internally and in all systems and dynamics and relationships, and everything's been split apart. To, of course, we cannot rebuild until we can demolish. And so this is the demolish of the demise of the old way, the old earth. So can we look at this from a place of, this is actually as planned, it's perfect, it's part of the process, and it gives us a ground zero.
Yes.
And so if we can choose to surrender the idea of control of this, and we can kind of allow this to unfold of our own personal process, and we can choose where we want to be in our own thoughts, feelings, emotions, actions, and to know that this is perfectly planned. This is the plandemic, and there's no way around it because we're rebuilding the new earth. And so I know you're saying the advice for people is to pray, but I'd also, and that's great, and I think we need to, but I think we also need to really set the intention that we can choose our experience in this and choose our own reality.
Absolutely. And I think the prayer part goes more to the smooth transition into that new way of being. Because the reality is that many people right now in the world are in deep suffering. They are. So, and it might not be you directly, and that's why I've been feeling so emotional. I have this sensation that I'm feeling a lot of the world's everything. And I'm like, what's going on? I'm super emotional. And like, okay, how can we support that process for the earth as light workers, as twins, as, how can we support that from a place of heart and from a place of compassion? And I think I wrote here in my notes that the key is Venus. And because let's say just like kicking off the month, and that's going to start being felt even before. It's not like on that day, but it gets exact August 1st. We kick off the month with, that's it. That's where the intensity of the world is going to be like. So the energy associated with this is revolution, restlessness, collapse, surprises, freedom movements. A lot of that is going to be like coming up, but it's like uprisings, it's possible too. And it could be also an internal uprising that doesn't have to be necessarily a collective. Some people express it outwardly in actual real life demonstrations. Sometimes it's the inner need for a fundamental change and shift in our whole way of living, period, regarding our values, our everything is just, and I looked up the meaning of revolution, and there were a few meanings, because this is the energy of the month. Like, we're going to have to live with it and do the best we can with it. So a dramatic and wide-reaching change in the way something works or is organized, or in people's ideas about it. And I thought that was the best descriptive of what's going on. The other one is forcible overthrow of a social order in favor of a new system. And this is what you were talking about. There is this divine plan in action, which it's the evolutionary machine is not stopping. What I think we need to do is to make the process as easy and graceful as possible. And this is why Venus is the key. Because as I was looking at the astrology, and if you mind, some technicalities, if for those who know up there, there's gonna out there, Mars and Uranus and the North Node are together completely exactly that day. And
what day?
On the 1st, August
1st. Okay.
And Mars is the warrior, the action, the passion, the anger, all of that is Mars. Uranus is the big evolutionary machine that wants freedom, liberation, awakening, and it shakes things up, and it's not like gentle. It's like, okay, gone. That's Uranus. What? It's it shakes the ground and things are gone, and that's it. It's like, okay, get over it. It cuts. That's Uranus. So when these two come together, is this revolutionary energy that's in this collective psyche. And the North Node is where we're going. That's the push, the evolutionary push that wants us to change the way we relate to Mother Earth, to our resources, to the one that feeds us. And if we don't change our ways, we're all going to die as a species. It's as simple as that, climate change, this and that. So it's almost like can't you see that we rely on food, on things to survive as a biological species? And if we don't change the way this has been done, and this over consumerism and, just trashing the earth for more profit and etc., and just, monocrop, huge farming, and then, it's not sustainable, literally. And the evolution, and we're seeing it, like what I was saying about Sri Lanka, and now also the farmers in Netherlands. There's all these government rules. And the thing is that this Uranus revolutionary pull is being exactly or very closely squared in tension to Saturn at the same time. And Saturn is the regulations, the rules, the norms, So it's like, a part wants to free itself, change things for the better. Another part wants to keep the things like the way they are, or to make sure that things are properly done. And then this creates tension, especially when Mars comes in. That's like a fuse. It's just like, okay, so when there's too much pressure, the thing just breaks. And that's why when the pieces are all broken, you can't put them together. You have to build something completely new, completely different. This doesn't happen in one day, but because we've seen this kind of over and over in different governments, like things are kind of, it's great upheavals, basically, all over the planet. And there is, however, a positive, let's say a positive aspect that helps this is that the self-expression, the Jupiter is going to be trining the sun this week as well. So the first week, so there's like a confidence. There's going to be a bravado, a confidence in going forward. So, and that's a positive thing. That's like an amazing, because it's like it gives you the confidence to move into these new territories. And the key, when I say the key to softening things up and not just acting out of the rebel, I'm a rebel, whatever, like crazy, is Venus. Venus is going to be doing a sextile to Mars, which is almost saying, Mars, can you tone down? Can you be a little bit more graceful? You don't have to go like a Spartan warrior, storming things. It's like there's maybe diplomacy can be used. So this is the call, would be to be more diplomatic. Maybe there's going to be agreements and diplomacy can be used instead of, okay, we're just all just, blowing at it right off. No, it's like there is, and the reason why it's the key is because it's not that obvious, that energy. It's something that needs to be harnessed. It's something that needs to go, hey, wait a minute, can I do this differently? And same thing, if your life is going through great upheavals for whatever reason, and this is particularly probably very strong for people that were born around the 10th of May, so Taurus people, 10th of November, Scorpio people, 10th of August, Leo people, and 10th of February, Aquarius people. And anyone born around those days, you might be feeling these tensions a little bit more strongly than other people. Of course, it depends on your individual chart. It's not cookie cutter, but as a general rule, there might be like this energy can feel very tense this month, of lots of changes, upheavals, and having to accommodate these new ways of being to the old structures, and at the same time having to deal with these impulses, either because there's impulsive people in your life putting that on you, or because you have urges to liberate and to like, okay, I'm done with this. So don't throw the baby with the bathwater. That's a little bit the message. And that's why I say like, we need to pray, because many people that are not conscious of how to use these energies might just throw the baby and the bathwater and everything, and it will be chaotic. And what we want is to not make it chaotic. Can we make a change and a transition in a more easy, graceful way? That's why Venus is in Cancer. So Venus in Cancer has this motherly quality. So I think appealing to I wrote Venus. Oh yeah, and I wrote this first week as well that Venus will be trining Neptune. So the spiritual ideas, and bringing in the compassion, helping others is the Mother Teresa energy, or the Yin, the Mother Mary archetype. And one act of kindness can go a long way. I'm reading all these notes because I was very tapped in this morning. So you see, amidst the chaos, how can you see somebody that may be suffering and offer something? One act of kindness. This is also a time, again, for prayer and to ask the Divine Mother. The Divine Mother is the divine feminine, is Gaia. It's our mother, the earth. She is going through a transition because Gaia, with all these planets in Taurus making all these changes, she's the one wanting to have all her children be fed and sustained. But if we don't work with her, but against her, then how are we going to make this ever work as species that can live in harmony? And this is the plants, the animals, the waters, the minerals. That's Mother Earth. And us, we are part of her. So I think tapping into that energy of the Divine Mother and connecting to her and praying. I will invite everybody to make those prayers, asking Gaia also to guide us into how she wants us to be with her, so that these upheaval or necessary changes don't need to be traumatic, and they don't necessarily need to. And what I'm saying is like what you said. What do we choose? We can choose the hard path, and there's going to be war and hunger and all of that. We can choose that as a species, but we can also choose the other way, the compassion way, the sharing way, the nurturing way. This is a big call, huge, and it's like, please. And we have free will, and we can choose whatever. And the impulses of Mars with Uranus can be so restless, so like, I'm done with this, freedom, like Braveheart in that movie, freedom. That's a very Mars Uranus energy. Freedom. So how can we make this not about reactivity against the system, but like, okay, we need to make adjustments. It needs to happen. So that's that big piece for the first week and the second week too. But so what do you have to say about this?
Well, I feel like that if we took that to the core is about us taking back our power. Because we've gave it to all these systems collectively, to the educational systems, to the financial systems, to the medical systems. We've allowed people to manage our health and well-being. As a chiropractor for years, I've watched that just over and over, and it gives people this sense of disempowerment when they think that they don't have these choices, and these choices they put in the hands of other people. And I feel like that we have been coming into a place of calling back that power, calling back that choice. And I feel like it is tipping. And just like anything in the trajectory or the pivotal point of this is going to be everything happening all at the same time. We're going to have the old systems. We're going to have the pain. We're going to have the new systems. And we can choose to do this with ease and grace, which is how we're going to dissolve it and dismantle it.
Yes.
And yes. And what did you say?
I have my hashtag I am awake t-shirt.
Yes, I love that. And your heart consciousness.
Yeah, I think I felt like I needed to wear this today.
Yes.
I interrupted, but I felt like this is the message, is I am awake through my heart. And my heart is what will make that change possible and exciting instead of violent and traumatic,
Yeah. And I feel like there's like everything, portals leading up to this timeline, portals coming out of the timeline, and we're ramping up and kind of down. And I feel like the ramp is also going through, like we had the last full moon in July, moving up to the Lion's Gate, moving to the end of August. I said moving up to July, I meant up to August. Okay. So up to August 8th with the Lion's Gate, and then coming down a ramp on the later half of August, going to about the full moon. And you can probably answer that better than me, but I've already been feeling this.
Yeah.
And so in that kind of pivotal point, I do see it and have seen it as being like the tipping of the scale in the physical. So we've already done it in the spiritual. And this is doing the same thing again in the physical realm. And that's why everything around us is, catching up to the vibration of the higher realm that's already happened. And if we've been on this journey very long, the key in this, I want people to realize, does not mean you're doomed or you'd have to go through this or all these things, because what I want you to know is everything you're talking about, I feel like I've been leading up to for the last 2 to 3 years. Last year went through like what you're saying now, like I kind of like went through it. And then it even hit a pitch for like probably from October to May of this year. And so for May of this year, coming into this timeline, for me, it's like I'm starting to shift to the other side of the bandwidth, but I'm always a few steps ahead of the collective, just because that way I guess how I signed up for it, like we're all on a bandwidth of moving this energy. So if you've been going through this, don't feel like it's like you got to focus on, oh my God, it's coming again. Because as you were saying all that, even myself was like, holy shit, I can't go through anymore. Like, so like in this time, I feel like I've kind of done what you're saying, and it's not that it won't continue, but I feel like I might be a little on the other side of it to help anchor it now, to help bring that into form.
I think that's very true for a lot of us who have been going through these upheavals like before. Like I went through very deep stuff 2018, 2019. And what I sense is that a lot of the light workers and starseeds, have already been prepared so that the masses that right now are going through the thick of it can have a guiding post, like you say, like, okay, there is a hope, there is a way. And like it's like the way showers, we kind of had to process a lot, and I'm still processing a lot, and I'm like, why? But and my reality is more internal and connected to what I feel in the environment, my actual like reality. It's like, again, my reality shows up as something already like new earthy looking like, but at the same time I feel psychically connected to that old earth matrix and still kind of cleaning that. Well, and this has already manifested, but I'm still cleaning this. So it's kind of interesting.
And I think we go through cycles of that. Because I've definitely felt like there's times where I've done what you're saying and like internal, and then my external catching up. And right now I feel like it's kind of both are trying to catch up at the same time, meaning like I've caught up, but now I'm catching up to the next level again. You know what I mean? Like we're also going up again.
Totally. And leading up to the Lion's Gate, and the Lion's Gate can have a lot of intensity because we're going to have Venus opposing Pluto. And whenever this happens, there is like intense passions, and power dynamics can come again and again to show us the things that have not been working in relationships, and how our projections of our own inner stuff can cause that desire to control the other. And this is like, okay, Pluto comes up again, and in the collective psyche, especially if you're like a Cancer, that might be.
I have a Cancer rising, so
this is for sun, moon, rising, and not just the sun, but if you're not very advanced in astrology, even if you just know your sun sign, this can be applying to you. But
if you don't, that's a good time to say Tatiana can really help you understand your own soul's blueprint personally. So make sure to check out an evolutionary astrology reading with her, because she's phenomenal at sharing your blueprint, and she's so passionate about it.
Oh, thank you. Yes, like I'm here to help you figure out things for sure, and help you with how you can take your own blueprint or your energy and elevate it to its best. Basically, that's how I can guide you. So if you don't know much, you can learn also. And then once you take that into your own hands and know your chart, then it's easier to even understand these videos, because you can go, oh yeah, I now know that my Venus does this and that, and I try to keep it not so technical in this channel, just because, some people say, what's that? So while this happens, and in leading up to the Lion's Gate, it's like we need to be aware of our projections, of what we're projecting onto others. And this is a good time to notice that, and notice, oh yeah, I'm projecting, I'm needing to control this, or so. And if we're not aware, what can happen is that we bring or attract people in our lives that can create those power trips. So we can see it. Oh, this is where I have not, That can also bring very intense emotions as well, like intense feelings. And it could also bring out the shadow of, jealousy and manipulation. That can also happen with Venus and Pluto, is that, we're all human, and sometimes we'll use our charm to manipulate. And so we need to caution that. It's like more like, what part of this is me needing to attach to certain power, and what part of it is genuinely me expressing myself. So it's a balancing act of those needs, and shedding what in relationships in particular.
Yeah, and I just want to say something about that, because I just did a video on that. And if everybody wants to go back and check that, and we'll make sure to have a link above and below for this as well. But 5 signs that you're in a toxic relationship, and how I kind of took the pros and the cons between a true toxic relationship in it and the twin flame journey with it, and did like a comparison, so you can see the truth in what's truly toxic and what's actually for you versus to you. So check that video out. It's really impactful, and it talks about the projections and the being jealous and a lot of different things. So I'd just like to point that out.
Well, this is a good time, whenever these transits come up, and if it's especially transiting you, this is a good time to wonder. Also, there could be power dynamics with relationship to money, because Venus also rules over value and money. And right now that Taurus energy is very active, and Venus is the ruler of Taurus. So we look at Venus to see the relationship, and okay, maybe there can be, and money or resources, money is a form of resource. So there can be power trips around money and resources. So this is a good time to see where we have our, shadows around money and value and resources. It's a good time. So if things come up in our lives that are reflecting that, stop and think, okay, what needs to be released? And at the same time, this first half of the month will bring, again, the excessive urge for independence. And when that happens, we have the rebel archetype. And the rebel sometimes is just a rebel for the sake of revolution, and this is why I want to caution people to not throw the baby with the bathwater, precisely because, sometimes we can make impulsive decisions and challenge authority in such a way that it breaks the bridge. It
burns the bridge.
And we don't want to burn bridges. What we want is to have all parties come to agreements where we can function as a society. Otherwise, yes, it's like, okay, we're going to be on this side, you're on that side, that's it, see ya, ciao, hasta la vista, baby. If that's necessary, absolutely, because it's too toxic, whatever environment, sure. But if it's not necessary, why? There are other ways. And if we want to see the other side, and this is where Venus is also so precious.
Well, this is where I think I just have to say something. This is so important, that I think we're revisiting cycles and patterns to revisit people that we've literally kind of tried to cut ties with, that we didn't complete what we needed, get what we needed from them, or complete our soul contracts, and they're coming back through and coming back around. And it's not like, what did you do wrong necessarily, but it's more like, how can I do it different? And how can I not have to have the need to cut them off? Because if you have a need to cut them off, period, then there's something within yourself that's not resolved.
Bingo. And we have a bunch of planets in retrograde. So I like that you said we're revisiting. We have Pluto retrograde, Saturn retrograde, Uranus, Neptune retrograde, Jupiter retrograde, Chiron retrograde. It's like all the retrograde energy usually deals with going back inside, arranging things inside your inner existence. And that sometimes means that people or experiences past come to be reviewed, literally, like all of this review. So we can also know who are the people that are going to be supportive in our journey. What are the things that, yes, okay, the evolutionary machine says yes to these people. Some soulmates might come in as well while Venus is in that trine to Neptune during that Lion's Gate. This is probably a beautiful time. And in Lion's Gate, we have the alignment to Sirius. It will be this beautiful time to also say, hey, where's my soul family? So you see, this is like, it's not all doom and gloom. That's what I'm saying. It's these two polarities. And what we're trying to make is not to make it so polarized, but to unify it a little bit. So we can actually team up with those that will be, useful for the evolution of the collective. And the compassion, again, I call again the compassion that we have for our humankind, for those that are suffering. And what can I do? It doesn't have to be a big thing. Sometimes just a prayer is a big thing. And this is something that sometimes we take for granted. Those 5 minutes that we close our eyes and visualize the earth enveloped in pink energy, or a person that we know is suffering, send them some light and love. And those 5 minutes in that little state, when it's from your heart, can make huge impacts. And we sometimes take that for granted because we think we need to be, I don't know, donating money or doing this or serving. Yes, all that helps. Everything helps. But every little bit we do in here helps too. So this is, I invite prayer and visualizations and gatherings with people to create heart fields, and because that helps and helps smoothen the transition of this, to new earth. So yeah, we'll have very much emotional intensity around the Lion's Gate. And like you said, maybe if you're with your twin or with energies that are challenging those, buttons, you might feel it intensely around the Lion's Gate. So 9, 10, 11, 12, that part of the month might be where we're going to have to process some stuff. But
that's Julian and I's wedding anniversary on August 8th, our 1 year.
Well, there you go. And it's a good time to maybe go back and review how much you've made progress and how much you do a really conscious ritual.
Yes.
What you have shed and the new versions you're becoming.
Yes.
That's the perfect way of using this energy in its best form.
And we both have been visiting the cycle of what you're saying individually, and it's showing within our union. So it's been huge that what we've saw and what we've helped each other transmute that only we could help the other do.
Yeah.
And it's showing up in physical manifestation of like Julian lost his wallet for 2 weeks and it showed up yesterday. And it was like he had to get a new identity, you know, a new ID. And a tree went through my windshield, which people who follow me very long, they know that I talk about how breaking glass completes a cycle. And yeah, and the car is how you navigate life.
Yes.
And so, and it just so happened that I was driving because he had lost his wallet the day before. So it was all about the driver on the driver's side. And so, and 95% of the time he opens the door for me. So it could have been both of us, but signs were showing that we kind of missed it through some redirect and not leaving at the time we were leaving. And it's just bizarre how I've been seeing so many cycles come back around to show me completion, closure, new way, next level.
Yeah, I don't know this. You talked about identity, and people that especially were born around the 15th of January, 15th to 20th of January, and either the Capricorn people, Capricorn, Cancer, Aries, and Libra people, around the 15th of their corresponding month, you have been having a Pluto overhaul. So it's like your identity might have been severely challenged in the past. It's being challenging like for the 2 years, and it's like a whole ego shedding. A need to shed all the layers of ego. Otherwise, it can be very painful to keep, carrying the same old skin while you're already growing a new one. You can't keep this old skin. You gotta let it go. So a lot of people might be feeling these transits pretty intensely. It's an intense time, especially with relationships and the power dynamics, and this can be like, okay, what are we looking at? What are we looking at? So that the identity can completely be renewed and the ego shed all those beliefs we have, or societal beliefs, or we think things should be like because we know better than everybody else or whatever. Out the window, my friend, because there's a whole new set of things coming that if we're not clean and clear, it's not going to stick. So, yeah, so that's that. The other things that are happening, Mars trining Pluto. Yes, this is intense willpower and courage. And I wrote a quote, there is no way back. Now, this is just forward. Once the thing has shattered and you have summoned your willpower to keep going, like just, there's no time to go and look back and move. No, that's it. It's just let it go and summon that courage and that power.
That's why when you said that about the shattering and my glass shattering, like I feel like there was a physical representation that literally happened to me, that I literally went through what you're saying. And like, so I would just tell people, don't be surprised if something doesn't break around you. Or I've done this with clients before and mentioned that. And people always say, oh my gosh, like this broke and that broke. And it literally physically something will break in your reality. And it's a physical manifestation of the energy shift in your life. And if that is you, let us know below, because this is very real when it happens.
And sometimes the energy, if it's not, you can actually channel it in different ways so that it doesn't manifest as something breaking in your house or even earthquakes. This is the energy of earthquake. So imagine this. Imagine there's an earthquake and everything breaks, right? So I'm being like overly dramatic. So the way to divert these energies into an expression where that doesn't happen like that is to use that willpower and that exhilaration into building already new things. So put that energy not into trying to hold the thing together or putting it more rigid because it's gonna fall, it's falling. Now let it fall, let it go. And then you'll see if you put that energy into the excitement of the new, which is like, and I wrote here, through the full moon in Aquarius, which will be August 11th, there's going to be a lot of tension because our social structures will be breaking. I wrote this down. You see, we talk about breaking. I see breaking glass. The social structures are breaking. And this is the turning point. And there might be feelings, like the feeling can be a feeling of sadness or loss and grief, because there are things that we just need to let go. And the grief can be very real, and but it's as we see the world or those structures collapse, there's the sun is rising on the other side. So this is kind of this a little bit of apocalyptical I'm hearing in my head like an epic music, da, 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 and in slow motion things are crumbling, and you see the old world, and then the hero looks there, the sun's rising, and then you have no choice but just to move towards the sun. I just described all the images that come to me because
I'm going to show you the image. This is a twin flame. For those of you that haven't got your deck yet, it did sell out from the publisher. I still have some decks back here, but it's gone on back order from the publisher, and other stores do have it. But for Twin Flame Ascension Oracle card deck, it is for sale. It won an award, the INETS Award, a gold award. But card 5/5. And this is the ascension path, the pathway to heaven on earth, basically. And it represents breakthrough, and that we're processing the karmic debris. So we've got our breakthrough here, and now we're just cleaning up the debris following.
It's so cool because I was describing this as I was seeing that, and then you pull a card.
Yeah. I know when you were saying it, I'm like, she's talking about our card.
I did draw that card, but I didn't.
I know, right?
But that's exactly it. So people, this is it.
And that's Tatiana in that picture, by the way.
But that's, and this image represents a little bit of that breakthrough precisely, is when things when we let go, we see that sun, we see that.
Well, and that's also the perspective, realizing it's a breakthrough, not a breakdown.
Exactly. Because maybe one of the images like not seeing it, but then the other one is just, it's already gone there. So, and this is what's happening. And the key, and I'm going to tell you what the key is. The key is Neptune in this whole transit, because this is like having this, being the spiritual warrior is the key, not the one that's going to go and destroy a government or no, that's not the key. The key is, how are we fighting? And I don't even like the word fighting. How are we, moving passionately with a divine will and a compassionate will, and the because there's going to be a supportive trine or of Mars to Neptune as we move through this. So it's going to require that spiritual warrior kind of energy, where there is the will of the divine. It's not my little will, I want to crush you and I want to, no. It's not the ego will of like, this is not working, I want you out. It's not that. It's how do we align with divine will, and how is that divine will moving through us? And that's the courage that we need to summon. The courage to move through the divine will.
So, and I want to show something about that. And the divine will is the perception and the choice we talked about in a huge manner. So on the bandwidth of that, I would say that the breakthrough that we just showed and sorting through that karmic debris is like the pivotal point we're talking about. And so that's where on the bandwidth of this energy, some people are going to be in a place of the dark night, and they're going to continue to have that dark night. And the key in that is to surrender. Until you surrender that resistance, you're hanging on to all of that. But on the flip side, as you're coming out of it, you're literally going through integration. And see all the pieces and the parts that you're putting back together as you're rebuilding, and the integration of the information. And that is also keeping in mind that that integration is taking place beyond one dimension. It's taking place emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, on every level. And so that's where I was saying before, we've went through this spiritually. Now we're going through it more physically. And so how we navigate it in a physical plane also is important. How we navigate it in our physical life, our physical reality, our physical dimension, our physical bodies. So our physical bodies are also being very affected by this energy. And a lot of people have been going through traumas and illness and all kinds of things that they're having to deal with on a physical plane in their physical bodies. And so it's going to be so important that to be able to work physically. So one of the keys I feel like to say about the foundation of rebuilding this is not just our emotional body or our mental body or our spiritual body anymore. We need a strong physical body in order to be able to build the foundation of all the rest on within ourselves. And so if people are not putting the time and the energy into their nutrition and their fitness and the way they sleep and what they drink and all these parts, and I'm finding personally it's also about like the consistency and the commitment to that. And not just, like knowing it, but doing it and taking some action that calls for us, calling back our masculine self that we kind of separated from because it was too overbearing, too overstructured. But we're being asked to some levels to call back that masculine power now, to put some structure in place as well.
It's so cool that you were talking about the structure and the, like you have to be persistent and when Mercury enters Virgo, the energy is very grounded now. Like it's Earth. We have all this energy in Taurus, and now we're going to start having more energy in Virgo. And by the time that starts happening, it's like we're going to have the strategic planner like working for us. It's like, okay, now I see what's needed, how it's done, how these pieces can put together, how we can have these things work for us in the real physical world, like in that integration state. We're having a lot of Earth energy right now. So it's real, it's physical, it's here. It's not in the ideal or whatever. Mm-hmm. The cool thing is we're going to have a trine of Mercury to Uranus. So that energy of Taurus, that energy of change will also bring, guess what? Aha, ding, the light bulb moments. This is when we can connect to our higher guidance and our higher mind, or even our galactic family, and all that info that comes from, who knows where. And you can stream it and download it and make it practical. This is the genius aspect. When you have Uranus, Mercury, that's what we call the genius. When you have that genius idea, and suddenly you put it into practice because it's Virgo and it's grounded and it's Taurus, it's Earth. So, okay, maybe you're going to build that whatever thing, or you suddenly get this great idea and then you do it. And this idea works in building that new Earth. And I think of things like new technologies are going to be coming as well. So if you're somebody who's been already working with ideas to solve problems, instead of like whining of all the old that we can't hang on to, it's like, what is all this new stuff that could be possible, and the new ways of doing things? We're going to be having a little window of eureka time during this time, which is around August 13th. It's a good time to open up to your dreams. And if you have an idea and a dream, write it down, or to even take some time to do automatic writing to see what comes. Or even if you have one idea, take the little notebook and write it. Even if you're not going to act it out right away, this is when the downloads come. This is download time. So I would suggest take a little time during this time to download and to get disciplined. And that will be a good, if you get that little discipline time of downloading info, it could be very productive, let's say, in the future. And this is also a time, I think that third week after the 13th, after the first intensity, is going to be filled with possibility. This is what I feel. After that breakthrough, there's going to be like, you're going to see that maybe people that you're maybe in alliance with are super supportive, that you find awesome friends, that there's genuine concern for others. It's not like, oh yeah, I like you, want to help you. No, there's going to be, yes, I want to support you. And because Jupiter will be trining Venus during this time, you will feel that maybe people around you share the same values and are really willing to work together. So this is a beautiful week for that. After the intensity of that break, it's like, okay, we cannot do anything but work together to make something fabulous, you know? And that will be very much supported. The only thing to be a little bit cautious with is that is to stay realistic, and that the wishful thinking of like, a little bit like being trying to make a fantasy out of life, doesn't get the best of you. But you can still be realistic around what is possible, and not like, oh well, then maybe we should just ride all unicorns. Yes, what a great idea to build new Earth. It's like, well, yeah, but it's not gonna really work that way, you know. So yes, maybe, okay, we could ride unicorns, but you know, how can we do that? Strategic planner. Okay, unicorns, then we can bring unicorns, but we'll need to, you know, do this. Okay, that's not really possible, but we'll try, you know. That's the midpoint. So we're not caught in this, like, you know, fantasy of the rebuild or whatever. Because it can be also a confusing time when Mercury is opposing Neptune. There could be deceptions. So I always see with this aspect, for people that tend to be a little bit dupable, to learn discernment, to be very discerning. So if something comes your way that feels like great, and somebody comes, well, be discerning, or ask people their opinion, ask several people, so you're not caught in making decisions out of confusion or non-clarity. Make clear agreements as well. Make sure that if there's anything you're talking, that it's clear, because this is also a time where things can get like, I said this, but you said that, but I understood this, and you know. And so it's a time that we need to be clear. And well, the last bit of the month, it gets a little bit tense again. You know, this is a month of like, it's like a breath and an out breath. There's like, it's going to be a month where it feels there's a little bit of everything. Towards the 20th of August, we might feel again a lot of bravado, assertion, maybe some competitive energy in the way. And when it's too forceful, too young, you know, because we're going to be seeing more fire energy now as the month progresses, because we have Venus in Leo, the Sun in Leo, we have Jupiter in Aries, and so there is basically like practically no water in this part. So it's about a lot of passion. It's very young, and it's like passion and grounding. So there's maybe not a lot of time for emotional processing. And so by the end of the month, there could be also the possibility of breakups happening, because whenever Uranus squares Venus, there is a tension between my personal desires, wants, and the other, and maybe a need to liberate from something that I'm like not. Like, you know, when you feel a little bit constricted by something, you might want to just like not commit or be free, and that sometimes translates in people breaking up. And the idea is precisely not to take this as sometimes it feels like, I feel trapped. And again, every time we have these feelings of I just want to be free and I feel trapped, it's like, what part of my psyche is trapping me? Because it's not necessarily the other person, it's something inside of me that wants to be free that has not probably been resolved. So why can't I commit? Why do I not want to come close? Why do I need more space? Okay, ask yourself those questions before, okay, I'm just breaking up, or because there might be a little bit of that tension happening at the end of the month. And relationship breakups could be a result of tensions that are not resolved within you. So if you resolve it within you, what happens? The goal at the end of it is anything we resolve regarding why we feel we need space or to be left alone could be linked to abandonment issues, healing the abandonment wound that we know very much. So these are sometimes the possibility to see, that maybe we are fearful of abandonment and how we can take this as an opportunity to heal those wounds. The other possibility here is that other things that may be coming up the last part of the month, and it's going to be during the new moon in Virgo. It's we want to be optimistic, but not overly optimistic. Oh, what happened? You left. Oh, your picture was there.
It was intentional. I was trying not to have a cut in the editing.
This is a good time to express your truth. Again, however, beware always when you're expressing too much of your truth to not make it about the absolute truth in a dogmatic way, because that can come across as dogma. So it's a good way to connect to what is true for you. And being optimistic about life is great, but being overly optimistic or even promising more than we can deliver, it's not a good idea at the end of the month. So again, stay always in, I recommend always checking in with yourself to what you're actually capable of doing, and what your words are like their weight in gold. So make sure that the words, that your words of wisdom are not tainted with dogma in this week, because we might be sometimes feel like, oh, I got it all figured out. So always stay open to everybody's perspective. And because Mercury will be entering Libra and opposing Jupiter. So there might be a little bit of, well, we need to make sure that we're also listening to others. Yes, we can express, but listen. This is a week for also listening. And because the relationships might be a little bit tense during this last week, the best solution is when we listen. Because if we listen to the other, we're not trying to force what we believe is right. We just listen, and then that helps the dynamics clear out. Yes, because relationships might be going through little trial periods at the end of the month. It's another one of those relationship trial period where we're testing our friendships, we're testing our relationships, we're testing our commitments. And the test can come from people outside, or it can come from our inner, sense of, okay, what do I really want? Do I want this? Do I not want it? So relationships might feel a little bit strained during this period. And the antidote to this, again, is listen. Listen, because when we listen to the other, we are much more able to come to agreements and solve the strains and elevate and keep moving forward. We all know in this channel that a relationship is not, and they got married and got happily and ever after. Relationships are a work in progress for evolution. And we go through these cycles, and that's why we're on this channel, learning how to elevate each cycle. So when something comes around again, we look at it consciously and elevate it, and so on and so forth. So bless your relationships. Bless them all. Great or hard, bless them, because they are what makes us exist and be, like, have something to be looking forward to is the relationship we have with everything, people, places, things, animals. Yeah. So that's a little bit of the closing, very intense month that I hope we see a really beautiful breakthrough at the end of this month, so we can move on with the plan in ease, grace, and love. And yeah, I hope we can all feel like this at the end. And every ending is a beginning, and every beginning is the possibility for a future ending. So
thank you, Tatiana. I really appreciate you coming here and sharing your love, light, liberation, and passion with others. I feel guided just to take a moment to hold some space for the collective energy and everyone watching, and sending them the peace and purity, 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 peace and purity. Peace and purity, 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 peace and purity. Peace and purity, 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 peace and purity. So sending everyone so much love and peace and purity. And may this month be your best month yet. And let us know how you ride out this month in your own pressing, seeing your integration, your breakthroughs, and let us know what breakthroughs you're experiencing. Make sure to check out all the ways you can go forward with Tatiana below. And don't forget to get plugged into our Evolutionary Astrology readings. They are amazing. Don't forget to check out the card deck below, the link available for that. And may you always face your fears, find freedom, and glow forward in fire. We'll see you next time. Namaste.